Bonjour les Yanine. Ceci est notre deuxième leçon de la semaine. Écrivez la date et le titre. Le titre aujourd'hui, c'est le conditionnel. Today we're learning the conditional. As a starter activity, we are working on idioms. Idioms are phrases that cannot be translated literally in a language. For example, it's like in English when you say this is food for thought. The person doesn't mean that it's actually food, okay? It's an image. Or if you do an activity to make people feel comfortable, you would say this is an activity to break the ice. You're not actually breaking the ice, okay? So these are idioms. Every language has idioms that are proper to that language. Today I've selected 4 phrases for you that you can hear. People use them in France. And if you want to really sound French, if you can use idioms every now and then, it will really impress French people. So today we've got casser la croûte, avoir du pain sur la planche, long comme un jour sans pain, et ne pas être dans son assiette. Can you guess the meaning of these phrases? I will translate them literally now so that you understand the words that are in there. But obviously they are idioms, so they don't literally mean what they say. So casser la croûte literally means to break the crust. Avoir du pain sur la planche is to have bread on the board, on the chopping board. Long comme un jour sans pain, long like a day without bread. And ne pas être dans son assiette, to not be in your plate. Have a think. If you hear French people using these idioms, what do you think they actually mean? Write the 4 phrases down, and now I'm going to reveal their meaning. So, casser la croûte actually means to eat, to break the crust of the bread. Avoir du pain sur la planche, to have bread on the board. When people say that, they mean that they have a lot on their plate. They have a lot of work to do. Long comme un jour sans pain describes a very long day. And I like this phrase because it's very representative of French culture. As you know, in France, bread is a big part of the culture. Usually in every meal, there will be bread on the table in France. When you go to a restaurant in France, bread is always provided for free with your meal. It's a big deal in France. So a day without bread would be a very long day in French culture. So long comme un jour sans pain means a very long day. And finally, ne pas être dans son assiette is to be feeling down, to not be feeling really well. Okay. So copy down the translation. Et maintenant, on continue. Ok, voici les objectifs de la semaine. So we will continue working on learning vocab of invitation, learning the conditional. We will practice with the writing and we'll keep on evaluating our progress. First of all, let's correct the work that you had to do yesterday. You had to translate the 4 sentences. On pourrait aller au cinéma. Make sure you correct your work. It was we could go to the cinema. Then, ça te dit d'aller au parc et à la piscine. Are you up for going to the park and to the swimming pool? Do you want to go shopping and then watch a DVD? Tu veux faire les magasins et puis, ensuite, regarder un DVD? Are you up for having a picnic? Ça te dit de faire un pique-nique? So make sure you correct everything. If you've got any question, you can contact your teacher to ask for clarification. As we've seen in the last lesson, on pourrait means we could go. This is the verb pouvoir, to be able to or can, conjugated in the conditional. Okay, this is what we are going to learn now. So this is the recipe for the conditional. The conditional is not a tense. This is what we call a mood. But for now, don't worry about this. Just remember how to use it. The conditional, as you hear in the name, is a tense that you use when there is a condition for something to happen. For example, if I could, I would go shopping. There is a condition, the condition that if I could, if I had the money, I would buy a house. Okay, there's the condition that I need to have that money. When there is a condition, you use the conditional. So to form the conditional, first of all, you need your pronoun. Okay, je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il and elle. Then you need the infinitive of your verb. So looking at this, this should remind you of another tense. When you use a pronoun and then you put the infinitive of the verb, so far it looks like the simple future. Okay? Just to clarify, an infinitive, remember, it's a verb before it gets conjugated. The only three possible endings for an infinitive in French are ER, IR, and RE. So after your pronoun, you will put your verb and you keep it as a whole. For RE verbs, you will need to drop the E before you stick the ending. And finally, some verbs, they have an irregular stem. So for some verbs, you will not use the infinitive. You will use their irregular stem, and I'm going to share this with you in a second. After you've put your infinitive, you need the endings. And it's easy to remember, the endings of the conditional are the endings of the imperfect. So for je, it's AIS. For tu, AIS. For il, elle, on, AIT. For nous, IONS. For vous, IEZ. And for il and elle, AIENT. The endings are always regular. Even if your verb has an irregular stem, you still have the normal endings of the imperfect at the end. Okay? Here are the irregular stems. I've put them in this box. There are many more verbs that are irregular in the conditional, but if at least you know these off by heart, that would be great. So for avoir, for example, to have, instead of using avoir in the purple box, okay, you use the irregular stem, which is AUR. For être, you would use SER. For aller, IR, etc. Luckily for you, the irregular verbs in the conditional are the same irregular verbs as in the simple future. And their irregular stem is the same. So the middle part of the conditional is exactly the same as the future. The only thing that changes is the ending. I'm just going to refresh your memory on these verbs so that you know exactly what they mean. Avoir, remember, it means to have. Être means to be. Aller is to go. Faire is to do. Venir is to come. Voir is to see. Pouvoir is to be able to. And vouloir is to want. Okay? Finally, le conditionnel, so the conditional is the equivalent of when you would use would. Most of the time in English you would translate it as would, sometimes as could or should, okay? But in French we do not have a word for would. What we do is we use this recipe, okay? So if you want to say, for example, I would drive, when you translate this, you would translate I, which is je, but then there is no word for would. You cannot translate it. You need to go to your verb, which is drive here. Drive is conduire. It's a RE verb. So as you can see here on the screen, I got rid of the E. I kept conduire, but I dropped the E because the recipe says drop the E for RE verbs. And then I've put the ending AIS because the recipe says that for je, the ending is AIS. So je conduirais means I would drive. I hope this makes sense. The best way to see if you've understood it is to practice. So now copy this whole recipe exactly the same way as I have done and copy the irregular stem and the yellow box at the bottom. And once you're done, move on to the exercise. Here is the exercise. So I've made a list of verbs, common verbs in French, and specific pronouns that I want you to conjugate, that I want you to use to conjugate your verb. I'm going to show you how to do this. For manger, for example, with the pronoun I is je. If I follow the recipe, I need to keep my infinitive, so I copy the whole verb, manger, and then I stick the ending. The ending is AIS. So as you can see, je mangerai. Pronoun, infinitive, ending of the imperfect. And that would be translated as I would eat. Okay? So for the rest of the verbs, you don't need to copy that column. You need to go straight to conjugating your verb. Don't conjugate the whole verb. You only need to use the pronoun that I have put there. You informal, for example, that's tu. So for regarder, it would be tu, and then the infinitive, and then the appropriate ending of the imperfect. Off you go. As an extension, conjugate the whole verb pouvoir in the conditional. Okay, pause now. I'm going to continue. So let's correct the work. Je mangerai, I would eat. Tu regarderais, you would watch. Vous feriez, I've put it in pink here because faire is irregular. It has an irregular stem. So I did not write faire, I had to use F-E-R. Vous feriez, you would do. Acheter, tu achèterais, you would buy. There is an accent going down on the first E. You could not know that you had to write it down. It's one of those irregularities that there are on some verbs. So just make sure you add it now. Then être. Nous serions, again, this was an irregular verb, so we use SER. Nous serions, we would be. Then jouer with you all, that would be vous joueriez. Pronoun, infinitive, ending of the imperfect. Vous joueriez is you would play. Then, elle irait, she would go. Again, this was an irregular verb. Elle finirait, they would finish. Je verrais, I would see. And finally, ça or cela aurait, it would have. Okay. There are different words for it in French. Usually you can use cela or ça or even ce, ce. It depends on what follows. Okay, correct your work. Again, if you've got any question, you can contact me or your French teacher and we'll be more than happy to clarify things. Maybe watch the video again if you want to get another chance to understand the conditional. Ok, on continue. Alors, maintenant, on va s'entraîner à écrire. Write to a friend to suggest activities you could do. Criteria for success, use the conditional. Okay, we've learned the conditional today. We've learned phrases, of activities that one could do. So the aim of this paragraph is for you to reuse everything we've learned, okay? Do not use Google Translate. It doesn't help you. If you use Google Translate, your paragraph will be the result of the work of the internet, but not your work. What we need to see is that you use your brain and your book to create your own sentences. For GCSE, what you need to be able to do is to reuse the vocab that you learn in class, reuse the tenses that you learn in class, and put it together to form sentences. So to help you here, I've written down a little paragraph to show you how I would have done the task if I were a student. So, salut, on pourrait aller au cinéma ce week-end. Ce serait cool. Aussi, tu aimerais faire du shopping samedi? Ma sœur voudrait aller au fast-food. Mais moi, je préférerais aller à la plage avec toi, car on ferait un pique-nique et on mangerait des glaces. Tu me dis? Estelle. Tu me dis is a phrase to say, let me know. So I've underlined the verbs in the conditional. You see, the criteria for success was use the conditional, so I've tried as much as possible to put my verbs in the conditional. Okay, so it says, hi, we could go to the cinema this weekend. It would be cool. Also, would you like to go shopping on Saturday? Oops. My sister would like to go to the fast food, but I would prefer to go to the beach with you and we could have a picnic and we would eat ice creams. Let me know, Estelle. Okay? So try to create that kind of paragraph in the conditional. And extra challenge, can you try and include the phrase casser la croûte that we learned in the starter? Using idioms will help you to get the very top mark in your French exam. Off you go. Très bien, on a fini cette leçon. Voici le plenary. J'ai trouvé une image humoristique dans les journaux français. So I found a humoristic cartoon in French newspapers this week. And it's about the future and the conditional and the current situation. So I thought it was quite funny. I'm going to read it for you. C'est la rentrée. Maman, je reprendrai une vie normale. C'est du futur ou du conditionnel? Attends, le ministre va nous dire. So you can see the little girl doing her homework and asking her mom, I will go back to a normal life. Is that future or conditional? And the mom is watching TV, watching the minister updating everybody on the situation, saying, wait, the minister will let us know. So I thought it was quite humoristic. And your task in the plenary is to find out if the little girl was talking in the future or the conditional. Have a think. She says, je reprendrai. This is the verb reprendre, which is a RE verb. Looking at this, is it the future or the conditional? And here is the answer. It was the future tense, not the conditional. Because remember, future and conditional have the same structure, but the ending of the conditional here would be AIS. It is AI here, and that means that it's the simple future. Très bien. Bonne leçon, les Yanine. Au revoir.